my grandparents of blessed memory, George and Joan, for high school graduation, gifted me my first trip to Israel. I was 16. I boarded a flight without knowing another soul on the journey with me on a youth trip with NIFTY, National Federation of Temple Youth. Now, mind you, I was not a movement kid. I was not a kid who was part of a youth group. I had never done anything with NIFTY before. But my mom found this trip, and my grandparents wanted to send me, and so I went. I learned, and I lived, and I traveled all over Israel. And on that trip, I had my first personal experiences with that sacred land, with the people of Israel, and with my Jewish peers. I've shared the memory with you of sitting on a kibbutz hill, watching the sun sink down slowly behind the hills while singing the version of Shalom Rav that we will be singing again tonight. That memory was from that very first trip. To say it was a transformative experience is absolutely an understatement. That trip was a spiritual reawakening for your rabbi, but that's a longer story of which I won't bore you with right now. After that trip, I came home changed. I recommitted myself to Jewish tradition, to peoplehood, and to spiritual values, and I decided that I would dedicate myself to learning and engaging more deeply in Judaism. You see, I was raised in a pretty secular Jewish home, one where Judaism was a part of our identity, a part of our yearly cycle, but prayer wasn't the center of it for my family. And I realized on that trip, it was my job to feed my soul, to seek the spiritual community that I always longed for, and to engage in Jewish learning and in prayer. It was my job to learn Torah and Hebrew and to find the right Jewish community, one where I could be authentically my full and complete self. And I felt a calling to recommit myself to living a Jewish life. On that trip, your rabbi was born. Over my past few decades on earth, I've lived in Israel for 3 years of my adult life, once on a program called Project Otzma, a second time working for Hillel International, and finally a third time as an HUC rabbinic student. I have lived all over that country. I have experienced a wide variety of communities and people, of realities and identities. And I have Israeli family and friends who I remain connected to today. In fact, my Israeli sister, Reut, who's now a doctor in Tel Aviv, just this past week birthed twin baby girls. I met her when she was 12. Her family took me in as their own on my second trip to Israel, which was the Otzma trip, a work-study experience, a trip in which I fell in love with the land, with its communities. I lived on kibbutzim, I lived in Jerusalem, I studied, I worked, I learned our rich Jewish history. Kol Ami, it is not an easy time or moment in history to be Jewish, to love Israel, and to lead as a rabbi in a world ripe with anti-Semitism. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would one day stand on a bima defending my love for our spiritual homeland. In this week's Torah portion, Parshat Eikev, Moses outlines 5 principal demands for the people to follow in order to ensure that they thrive once they enter the land. The verbs are to revere, to walk, to love, to serve, and to keep. We, as a Jewish people, revere something greater than ourselves. We, as a Jewish people, walk humbly on this earth. We, as a Jewish people, love all kinds of kinds. We, as a Jewish people, serve those in need, both inside and outside our own circles of caring. And we, as a Jewish people, keep God's commandments and laws to help create a more just society. It says around a window in my office, you'll come visit sometime so you can see it, what does Adonai require of you? Only to do justice, to love goodness, and to walk humbly with your God. This text is from Micah chapter 6, verse 8, and it's echoed in this week's Torah portion. This was the advice that Moses gave our stiff-necked, stubborn people in his final swan song, in order to guide them before they stumbled, before they entered the land. And as I stand on this bima tonight, I'm flanked by two words: mishpat, justice, and rachamim, compassion. These words, these two words that have guided you, Kol Ami, in decades past, can guide us today. Many of you are struggling tonight as you sit in our sanctuary, our safe place. For the first time in a week, after hearing words of division, of struggle, of hatred pour forth from the mouths of some of our visitors. All week, I received emails and calls, texts, and requests for meetings, which I listened to, I thought deeply about, and I brought forth to our leadership. I have spent the week listening, discerning, and hearing some with heavy hearts. And in the after hours and in the early mornings, I heard the speeches of some of our politicians, world leaders, entertainers, and commentators. And I noticed something extraordinary begin to bubble up inside of me. As I listened and I watched, I saw people come together. I heard shouts of joy. I felt some hope bubbling up. I saw a bridge of the divide that has been stoked many years prior. I heard people speak of unity. I saw Republicans and Democrats standing next to one another. I heard Jewish parents implore the world that to bring home the hostages is not a political issue, it's a human rights issue. I saw unity. I heard compassion, rachamim, right and left aligning for the greater good of our country and of our people. There is no doubt, Kol Ami, in this post-October 7th world, being a Jew can be dangerous. Being a Zionist is a bold choice. And being a rabbi is much harder today than I ever imagined. Kol Ami, my Torah is the Torah of love, the Torah of rachamim, compassion, and mishpat, justice. I have deep compassion for Hirsch's parents who called out to their son in captivity. His mother said to stay strong, to survive, and to endure. My compassion overflows when I hear of those who felt ignored or assaulted because of their beliefs, because of their love of our country, because of a course of study or a celebration. those who felt ignored or denied of a joyous moment. Torah that divides is not true Torah. Torah that encourages hatred and stokes division is not true Torah. What does Adonai require of us, Kol Ami? Only to do justice, to foster love and compassion, to walk humbly with our God. In the months to come, Kol Ami, as we turn, we do teshuvah, we begin again. May these words, justice and compassion, guide us. May we approach each human being with rachamim. May we fight for more mishpat and tzedek in our world. May we bring home those hostages, and may we listen with all our hearts. This week in Torah, again, we read the word Shema. It appears over 92 times in the book of Deuteronomy. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, of blessed memory, implores us in his commentary on Eikev. Learn to listen. Listen to the song of the universe, in the call of birds, the rustle of trees, the crash and heave of the waves. Listen to the poetry of prayer, the music of psalms. Listen deeply to those you love and who love you. Listen to the words of God in the Torah and hear them speak to you. Listening is not easy, but listening alone bridges the abyss between soul and soul, self and other, I and the divine. Kol Ami, let us be the safe space we long for. Help us create a sukkah shalom, a sukkah of peace around us and around all who enter this sanctuary. Bless this sacred bima and this sanctuary and you, my Kol Ami family, and together as one community, united, may we bring forth justice and compassion. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yasher Torah.